Good evening, and thank you for joining us. As he continues to urge more Ontario residents to be tested for COVID-19, Premier Doug Ford is also expressing dismay about a huge gathering in Toronto this weekend. Large crowds turned out to enjoy the weather at a city park, most of them ignoring social distancing rules. Now, the Premier says he hopes those in attendance don't spread the virus to their families. Colin DeMello reports.
The very first weekend of Stage 1 of Ontario's reopening plan, and the throngs of people at Toronto's Trinity Bellwoods Park left the Premier with concerns.
Why don't you do us all a favor and go get tested now? Go to the local hospital assessment center and get tested.
The mass gathering comes at a time when the province's COVID-19 case numbers are rising. For the fifth day in a row, more than 400 people tested positive for the virus. The bulk of these cases are believed to be connected to Mother's Day, but it hampers the province's ability to expand social gatherings.
Given what's happened with the numbers of people coming down with COVID in the last few days, Dr. Williams is reluctant to move forward with that right away.
What's worse, the Premier says, every time large gatherings cause a spike in numbers, his government gets, quote, gun shy. And while the Premier does not want to move backwards,
I'm not going to punish the whole province because a group of people in Toronto ended up getting together.
Other regions in Ontario that have not been hit as hard by COVID-19 are now being held back by the Greater Toronto Area.
It just doesn't make sense. The people of Toronto are going to go into rural areas, and we need to tighten things up.
Which is why the government is now focusing on widespread testing. The Premier said he was delighted to see people lining up at testing centres and says the government is now looking at targeted testing in hotspots as well.
Parts of Peel Region, not all Peel Region, so Peel Region, parts of Toronto, not all of Toronto, and then Windsor-Essex area. Those are some.
Areas of focus to determine exactly how COVID-19 continues to spread.
Yesterday at Queen's Park, Premier Doug Ford claimed that anyone in Ontario who wanted to get tested for COVID-19 could do so. But here in Thunder Bay and many other places, only people with a symptom of the virus have been able to get a swab test. Health officials in our region admit the timing of the apparent shift in policy did come as a surprise. Michael Mahorovich has details.
If you feel you need a test, you'll be able to get a test.
It wasn't the Premier's comment itself that surprised the medical community in Thunder Bay, but the suddenness of the announcement that did. Although this shift in policy is seen as a positive step by COVID-19 incident manager Dr. Stuart Kennedy, he says they just aren't prepared for it.
I was surprised by the announcement, but by the timing of the announcement, but it's not unexpected. We need to do more testing of what we call asymptomatic patients to determine the prevalence of disease or COVID-19 here in the community. So we plan to reviewing our strategy, putting protocols in place that we now will be beginning to sort of test asymptomatic patients. It's going to take us a few days to get those protocols outlined at the assessment unit.
For now, the assessment center will still only test people by appointment only, done through the health unit, but that will soon change once the infrastructure and protocols are in place. Kennedy also says that they won't begin walk-in tests until they have more guidance from the Ministry of Health and the provincial government.
I think there's a scurry of activity down at the minister's office right now, actually, to give us some guidance right now. So the ones we're screening right now are the asymptomatic patients who are sort of deemed essential workers. We will sort of open it up to people who want to test in a little bit, but we want to deal with the priority ones first.
Meanwhile, some good news regarding that concerning situation announced Friday after a patient tested positive for COVID after several visits to the hospital. It led to 40 presumptive cases and 29 staff members being sent home.
Yes, we've gone down from 40 presumptive cases to 17 presumptive cases today, and that's a good sign. We actually also have 29 of our staff members that were sent home end of last week. All their test results have come back negative. 25 will continue to self-isolate at home for approximately 14 days, but that's all. We're quite excited about that news. So there's been no spread of any COVID-19 with our healthcare workers.
Michael Mahorovich, TBT News.
A member of Thunder Bay City Council wants to explore more cost-effective ways to replace the aging Balmoral Police Station. Earlier this year, the consulting firm Form Studio Architects presented council with two options: a brand new headquarters at a new location or extensive repairs to the existing 35-year-old building. Both options came with a hefty price tag in excess of $50 million, leaving councillors with major sticker shock. Now, Councillor Trevor Gertuga is asking for further review to identify additional options, including small neighborhood-based satellite offices.
Some of the areas where we might have some concerns, we can actually put high crime areas. We could actually put a satellite office there. So you have police not just driving by, coming in and out on a daily basis. I mean, logically, it's only going to improve the security for the area.
If Gertuga's motion passes, administration will be required to report back by September 30th. Neither the consultants nor Thunder Bay police officials were in favor of satellite offices when the matter was debated in March, insisting the service would operate far more efficiently out of a single facility. Thunder Bay's business community is hoping the city is on board with major changes to the pop-up patio initiative. City Council is set to discuss outdoor seating for restaurants at tonight's meeting. Chamber of Commerce and 4 other business groups have sent a note to Council looking for their assistance on a large change. The recommendation to Council would see a complete revamping of the patios in front of local restaurants. The business community is expecting COVID-19 to greatly limit capacity on seating when restaurants do open, and the old model of pop-up patios won't be viable. Instead, the business groups are looking at large dining areas, such as parking lots using city picnic tables. One of those plans would close Red River Road from Cumberland Street to Court Street for the entire summer. Chamber President Charlotte Robinson says the current application process is time-consuming and doesn't fit what is needed.
The application comes from individual restaurants, and it's based on the property specifically adjacent to their business. So the sidewalk in front of their business, or a space attached in their own property. And so, of course, in these times where we need potentially much larger spaces to allow for physical distancing, as well for outdoor spaces, that model doesn't work anymore.
Under this model, restaurants would need to pool resources to pay for disinfecting the areas their customers use. Robinson hopes that the next couple of weeks, Council can determine what needs to be done in order to optimize patio season this summer. A Thunder Bay woman was officially charged with first-degree murder today in connection with the death of a 79-year-old woman in Hamilton. 26-year-old Larissa Shingabis was spotted on surveillance video exiting the apartment building of Gladys Little on May 15th. The following day, Little was found dead in her apartment. Hamilton police say the two were not known to one another and found no signs of forced entry. Police found Shingabis staying at a Hamilton shelter and arrested her without incident. The murder charge was formally laid this morning. Shingabis was previously involved in a Thunder Bay homicide case. In July of 2014, Lloyd Oskanigish was beaten to death and set on fire by a group of intoxicated people in a wooded area near Field Street. 6 people were originally facing murder charges, including Shingabis. However, the charge against her was reduced twice, from second-degree murder to manslaughter and then to assault with a weapon, to which she pleaded guilty. The court heard she smashed a glass bottle on the unconscious victim's head. Shingabis received a 25-month sentence but was released for time served. Thunder Bay police have taken 7 people into custody following a complaint that a home on Ambrose Street had been taken over by a group of drug dealers. Among those charged are a Toronto man, 2 men from Thunder Bay, and 4 Southern Ontario teens. All are facing drug charges and charges of unlawfully being in a dwelling house. Police say they also seized about $9,000 worth of what's believed to be crack cocaine and over $5,000 in cash. The township of Dorian officially has a new reeve after last month's resignation of Ed Chambers. Chambers was first elected as a councillor 13 years ago before becoming reeve in 2014. In February, Chambers took a leave of absence to deal with a personal matter, and he officially resigned on April 29th. Acting reeve Bob Beattie has now been chosen by his council colleagues to take over the role for the remainder of the term. Beattie says he was honored by the show of support and says they've also decided how they will fill the vacant councillor seat.
It was nice to see. I mean, the reality is we're no different than any other municipality when it comes to COVID-19. Our municipal office is closed. We're doing virtual meetings. So it's an interesting times for everybody. The council position will be replaced by, we're going to advertise for written applications for the councillor position, and then council will decide who the applicant might be.
After the Ford government announced last week that schools would not be reopening until at least September, students and parents were left wondering how any personal belongings still inside schools could be retrieved. For the Lakehead School Board, that process begins this week. Even though students' last day of school came just before the extended March break, there are still many items left in classrooms and lockers at schools across the city. A.J. Keene is the superintendent of education for Lakehead Public Schools. He says a team working alongside the Thunder Bay District Health Unit has spent the last month developing and tweaking a safe pickup protocol. Keene explains the two options schools were given.
So there's two options for schools. Option A, which we're trying to encourage as much as possible, the safest method is not to allow parents and students into our schools, but rather have staff come in, bag up belongings, identify them, and then have parents pick them up in a drive-through process. In schools where that's not possible or too big, then option B is they have a protocol to allow parents and students in to actually access the lockers and retrieve their belongings.
All high schools will be using option 2, which allows students or parents to enter the school while maintaining physical distancing practices. They have about 10 minutes to retrieve their items. The health unit has required there only be one student per every 4 square meters. Elementary schools like Claude E. Garton will be using option 1 on Thursday. The school will offer time slots for certain grades to come use the curbside pickup protocol. Meanwhile, the Catholic School Board is still hashing out its plan for item pickup and expect to have the details finalized by the middle of next week. One of Thunder Bay's busiest intersections will soon be closed off to motorists. Major construction work on Balmoral Street at the Harbour Expressway is set to take place on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. All lanes and turning ramps are scheduled to be closed from 6 o'clock Wednesday morning until the end of the day on Thursday. The full closure will then be followed by both Balmoral and the Harbour Expressway reopening to a single lane in each direction. The city is in the midst of a $5.4 million road reconstruction and storm sewer installation on Balmoral from Hewitson Street to Alloy Drive. Drivers are asked to obey all signage and detours. The project is set to be complete sometime in October. Riding bicycles is becoming a common hobby among Thunder Bay residents during the pandemic, and local bike shops are reaping the benefits. On the flip side, however, many retailers are starting to see a shortage in product and have even started to limit their repair services. Cole Promain has more.
Yeah, sales have been really good. Like, these racks are normally completely full of bikes, and now they're not anymore.
3 Ride Bicycle on Red River Road has some empty space on their walls these days. As COVID-19 carries on, bicycle sales have seen a massive increase worldwide, and local stores are doing their best to keep up. While it is slowly becoming more and more difficult to acquire a bike in Thunder Bay, it looks like those who already own a set of wheels will have to wait a bit longer to get theirs serviced, according to 3 Ride Bicycle owner Brad Scott.
Yeah, repairs are kind of delayed right now. Like, we tend to prioritize all of the sales and online orders that we have. So all of the bike repairs seem to be taking at least a week, if not 2, for us to get to them and then get them done. We encourage customers to buy tools and a patch kit or a tube, take it home and do it yourself today.
Meanwhile, Fresh Air on Balmoral Street is also struggling to keep the bicycle rack stocked. Co-owner Peter Tofanetti says even their suppliers aren't able to keep up with demands.
We have the 4 biggest bike brands in the world, and Trek, for example, it's a $1 billion company. They have nothing. They have virtually nothing less than, say, a $3,000 or $4,000 bike that I can even order. I've got bikes that I've ordered that I will hopefully see sometime in June and July, and then after that they'll be wiped out until probably October.
With parks reopening and bicycle sales skyrocketing, stores like Fresh Air are hopeful that come the fall, they're able to fully stock the shelves once again. Cole Promain,
TBT News.
From fishing tournaments to music festivals and country fairs, events across the Northwest have been canceled one after another due to COVID-19. However, there's still hope for one group. The sound of roaring engines will still come to Terrace Bay this summer. Adam Riley has details.
For over 2 decades, the arrival of the August long weekend has meant one thing for car buffs in the Northwest: the Terrace Bay Drag Festival, a 3-day event of high-speed pursuit of the fastest quarter mile. Every year, the event draws a crowd, which can pose a bit of a problem during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Superior Classics Car Club President Mark Houston believes subtle hints provided by Premier Doug Ford in the weeks leading up to the past May long weekend could lead to some public gathering restrictions being lifted come August.
I don't think it's a coincidence that stage 1 was in and around the May long weekend. And in fact, I believe maybe Canada Day might be coincidental with another stage 2 possibly, if it hasn't happened already. And then stage 3, I think, will possibly be right before the August long weekend. People know that our event is August long weekend every year, so they're anticipating it happening. We're anticipating it happening.
Houston says the Dragfest organization is a well-oiled machine and is capable of calling off the event with 2 weeks' notice should conditions with the pandemic not improve. But in the meantime, the group will be getting together to host a series of test and tunes which don't have the spectator component, but still allow drivers to burn down the speedway.
The racers are itching to race because we pretty much have them captive. They can't really cross the border to go into the States to race anywhere there, although those tracks in the States, I believe, are starting to open up.
And with the U.S. border closed, it means one group which has become a regular at Dragfest, the Midwest Wild Bunch, might not be in attendance with their alcohol-fueled dragsters. Coupled with the track improvements made over the years, Houston feels the test and tune could bring a wider, more homegrown group of talent to Terrace Bay this season.
Where we might attract racers from the Sudbury area, Toronto, Sault Ste. Marie, maybe even into Manitoba. With the track improvements and these faster cars coming, we're hoping that the competition is better. It'll add more of a local flavor, like a Canadian flavor to these fast cars.
Over the years, Dragfest has managed to raise well over $250,000 for various charities in the region. And Houston says if the event gets the go-ahead this year, some groups that are helping with the pandemic response could be recipients. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Well, our very own Barry Third, a huge fan of Dragfest, and obviously he hopes that the event can get